guys, and welcome back to my channel. Now today we're going to be comparing care, diet, size, price, lifespan, handleability, availability of blue tongue and pink tongue skinks. Please keep in mind I've only been keeping these guys for a year and a year and a half, so they're still somewhat new to me, but I hope this helps you make a decision whether to get a pink tongue or a blue tongue, or like me you end up with both. Equally, if you own either or both and you would like to add to the conversation, feel free to in the comments below. But let's start with size. So the size of the animal itself as well as the tank size they require. So pink tongue skinks will max out at about 18 inches long. Some subspecies of blue tongue will only reach 18 inches, but many of them can reach up to 24 inches in length. So that's about 2 foot. Now weight wise, this also varies subspecies to subspecies when it comes to blue tongue skinks. So Bruce here, he's an Indonesian blue tongue skink, and he's likely going to max out at 400 to 600 grams. However, a pink tongue skink will usually range from about 115 to 130 grams, though there has been some that have been up to 200 grams. It really depends on who you're asking, and that's one thing I would mention about pink tongue skinks. A lot of the information you find, you have to get from fellow keepers or breeders, usually on forums and Facebook groups, so it can be hard to find like consistent, helpful information. Because you're going to get different answer from different people. There's some middle ground there, but for example, at the moment, Rex, who is almost 2, he's just over 100 grams. He has just come out of brumation though, whereas Bruce is a year and a half and he's just over 500 grams. So as you can imagine, weight-wise, there's a big difference between these two. And also pink tongue skinks, you'll find are very slender. They have long legs, great for climbing. Whereas blue tongue skinks are much stockier and they have shorter little chubby legs. Tank size wise, some care guides, mainly in the US, will say a pink tongue skink will be fine in a 10-gallon tank. And whilst researching pink tongue skinks, I did come across a couple videos where people had done just that. Please don't do that. Sure, when the babies are born they are tiny, but even then, they are active and they love to explore, and no animal deserves to be in a 10-gallon tank. Most decent guides will recommend a either 3 by 2 by 2 foot or 4 by 2 by 2 foot tank for a pink tongue skink. Now personally for me, I use a 3 foot long, 4 foot high, 2 foot deep tank for Rex. It's about 170 US gallon. He loves to climb, so I opted for a taller tank because I knew he'd love that. But with any pet, the bigger you can go, the better. Whereas blue tongue skinks, they start off in a 4 by 2 by 2 foot tank. That's like a minimum for an adult. But once again, bigger is encouraged. I know people who will keep their skinks in 7 or 8 foot tanks, and I hope to expand Bruce's tank to a 6, 7, 8 foot tank when I have more room, hopefully soon. It seems to be very easy for blue tongue skinks to become quite quickly overweight. Now this can be due to a lack of room to explore and exercise, and trust me, if you give them that room they will use it, and also because they're being overfed and particularly fed on diets that aren't suitable. Talking of diet, so I have mentioned Rex's diet quite a lot in the videos I've done about pink tongue skinks. Now in the wild they predominantly eat slugs and snails. They are technically omnivores, and many keepers have managed to get theirs to eat, you know, omnigold, eggs, the occasional pinky, sometimes waxworms, turkey mince. You know, I have seen quite a few different foods be consumed by pink tongue skinks online. However, my experience has been very different because Rex will only eat snails, and even then sometimes he can be a bit stubborn, but he will only eat snails, and so I have to buy or breed my own, and it can get very expensive. So you may end up with a skink that eats a variety, or you may end up with a skink like mine. And I guess that's sometimes why they're classed as specialists, because their diet can be quite specialist. And here in the UK, you used to be able to get feeder snails, and then I believe the farms that used to supply those snails shut down over lockdown and never reopened. So there's kind of a shortage, and you rely on giant African land snail breeders to sell off feeder snails. So it's it's not the easiest. I know some people will offer their skinks cat and dog food. Personally for me, I avoid that. I don't want to give that to my skinks. I prefer to give my skinks diets that are designed for them, but I understand some people will do that. Now, blue tongue skinks I find are a lot easier to feed and actually quite fun because you can change it up. Bruce will eat omnigold, locusts, morrow worms, the occasional fuzzy, egg, veg, fruit. Not very much fruit, he loves a blueberry. It can be expensive. But I've found feeding Bruce a lot easier and just, I don't have to crush snails every day. You can change it up. So it's easier to feed Bruce, maybe because Rex is so stubborn, but either way it's kind of expensive, which moves me on to price. So let's look at the prices of the animals themselves. So Rex cost me, I think, £210, and then Bruce, I believe, cost me £395. Now this of course is going to vary from where you buy it from, where you are in the world, if you go from a breeder, expo, shop, whether it's captive bred or wild caught, what subspecies it is. But in general, the price of the animals wasn't drastically different. However, the price of the setup was. So Bruce needed a much larger tank to start off with, whereas Rex actually moved into the 45 by 45 by 60 center Exo Terra because when I got him, he was tiny. Because of this, the initial setup costs were drastically different, much more expensive for my blue tongue skink, and going forward, when I get his bigger tank and all the supplies that need to go into that bigger tank, it is going to cost a lot. And as I mentioned, food-wise, they can both be a bit expensive. Far, far more expensive than my geckos, but I imagine less expensive than something like a monitor lizard. Let's next quickly touch upon lifespan. Which one lives longer? Well, actually, if you search it, both of them roughly live around 15 to 20 years, so there isn't much difference there. And both of them, it takes about 3 years for them to fully mature, so there's not really too much in it. In terms of availability though, I think there's quite a bit of variety here. You see, pink tongue skinks aren't the most common reptile to find. I certainly have never, maybe once, seen them in a reptile shop. When I started looking for Rex, there was actually only 2 or 3 in the whole UK that I could find online. So I'll say, when you're looking for a pink tongue skink, it's more likely that you need to find a breeder, look online if one happens to pop up in a shop and they advertise it, but you're not going to necessarily see them as common as a blue tongue skink. I almost always see a blue tongue skink when I go to a reptile shop. Sadly, you do kind of see a lot more wild caught Indonesians. Bruce is captive bred, and I'm glad for that because wild caught ones sell cheaper. But it's worth noting that they can often come with parasites, worms, you're not sure of their exact age. They're going to be more stressed than a captive bred one because they're not used to living in a tank, which can lead to other health conditions, and they tend to be far more defensive than captive bred skinks. So whenever I'd hear about blue tongue skinks and I was trying to choose which subspecies I'd want, I'd see a lot of people, mainly US keepers, say the Indonesian ones are very feisty and they're hard to tame down, but then it would turn out, oh, they have a wild caught one, so that makes sense. And then I have Bruce, who is an Indonesian, but he's captive bred and he is just so chill. Let's now look at handleability. So when you first get your pink tongue skink, sometimes for the first year, they can be particularly defensive. Hissy, they might run away, they don't want to be handled. Some keepers will actually just leave them for the first year to just get on with it. So you'll hear about how pink tongue skinks are lovely and docile, and you'll get one and then you'll be like, wait a minute, why does this thing hate me? But actually, I think it's kind of a good thing. It allows you to take a step back, respect the animal and its boundaries, and form a really good bond. Rex wasn't too bad during this time. He would almost always poop on me, for sure, whenever I handled him, but thankfully he doesn't do that now, and I'd say once we passed that year mark, he was totally fine, completely calm. Now in general, you'll find that they can cling to you pretty well. They're good climbers, they've got strong little legs. They can be fast when they want to be, but not uncontrollably. They're not going to be like a day gecko who can suddenly run up the wall. Similar to blue tongues, I would describe their texture as being more snake-like because of their much larger scales. I've never been bitten by Rex from what I can remember. I don't remember being bitten by him. He's also very gentle when taking food from me, which is nice. He'll let you stroke him on his jaw, on his back. Sometimes he might let out a little huff. But overall, he is very chill and fun to handle. Now, like Rex, Bruce can be a little huffy at times. Honestly, I think that's just a skink thing. Hissy and huffy. I think that's what I should have named them, really. I will say his little nails, oh my goodness. You have to wear long sleeves when holding him because those nails are like needles, and when he's walking on you, he doesn't mean to scratch you, but he will scratch you. And then for me, my arms get all like inflamed because they're like, what is this? So there's that. You definitely want to be wearing a hoodie or something because his nails are so sharp. The other thing is, and this has probably only happened 2 or 3 times in the past year, he has had an accident on me. And one of the times where he turned into a reptilian sprinkler, and my goodness, those skinks carry a lot of fluid. I think one day I wanted to get him out to weigh him and he didn't really want to come out, and I think I pushed the boundaries a bit too much and I ended up moving his hide and getting him out, and he just wasn't having it, and my goodness, I got soaked. Also, he has pooped before, and just a side note, out of the 2, blue tongue skinks definitely have the worst smelling massive poops, so you don't want to be pooped on. You definitely want a cleanup crew to take care of that, or you have to remove it every day because it is nasty. But when I first got Bruce, he was quite flighty. If you've watched my video of his first week or 2 when I had him, he didn't actually come out for most of that week. He was hidden away. Now the good thing is blue tongue skinks are quite food motivated, so you can definitely build trust during feeding times and they will come out and get food. And so what I'll do is sometimes I'll let him chase Morio worms down on the reptile room floor, right? And I'll interact with him, it's all positive. When I put him back in his tag, I'll give him his last Morio worm. So the whole experience was something good and he got rewarded for it. So once again, over time, things have got better. And I think with both skinks, it's just taught me to have a lot of patience and how rewarding it can be to just slowly grow that bond over time. Now, out of the 2, I feel Rex is probably the easier to handle once you get hold of him, just because for me, Bruce is quite big, but if you have like a bearded dragon, you're probably used to that. Now, before we go, I want to mention a few miscellaneous facts that I didn't really know where to fit into this video. So the first one is, if you prefer planted arboreal tanks and go for a pink tongue skink, blue tongues need more of a terrestrial tank, and though plants can be grown in a blue tongue skink tank, they can sometimes be dug up or flattened. Bruce has opted for constructing a tunnel under his once thriving fern that looks kind of dead now. Both types of skinks can sometimes be difficult to sex, so I must admit with Rex and Bruce I have just assumed this. With Bruce though, I know for sure he's a boy because one time his hemipene made a brief appearance and he once splooged on a leaf, so he's almost definitely male. With Rex I'm not sure, Rex could definitely be a girl. Both types of skinks actually give birth to live young, and though a typical litter for pink tongues can consist of 10 to 20 individuals, the largest litter recorded was 67. Yeah. Anyway, on that note, if you have any more questions about either pink tongue or blue tongue skinks, please check out their respective playlists or leave your question in the comments below. But I hope this video has helped. If you haven't already, please subscribe. But thank you for watching and goodbye.